25, 27. I keep forgetting every week. And welcome back, and ladies and gentlemen, we had a special hour this week, 8 p.m. Amsterdam Talk Season 2. I think this episode 25 or 26. And tonight, my guest is Dr. Armon Perry, where we're going to we have another guest too, Miss Stephanie Content, but she couldn't be here, but she did leave us a clip. And she wants to break down the end of high value men, the Kevin Samuels of the world and those natures. So what we're going to do first, we're going to start with Stephanie, and we're going to bring Stephanie right on in, where she recorded for us early.
Main purpose, manipulating and bringing in women that for some reason they feel are in control of them and at the same time beneath them, is nothing new. The term high value man, though, was popularized by a content creator, and I dare not say his name because I am afraid that if I do, he will drop in from my ceiling and remind me that I am an over 30 unmarried woman, and well, I'm not worthy of anyone's love. But I will put his name here on the screen. And he started making content in the year 2016 here on YouTube and very, very quickly amassed a very big following. Why? Because men who have been hurt in the dating arena, they have been rejected by a woman that they felt that they should be able to have simply because, well, they wanted her. They very easily found it exciting to rally around a common cause. And this man was the Pied Piper of that cause. And the cause was uplift men while at the same time putting women in their place. And it seemed like you couldn't go anywhere really without hearing content from this particular creator or any of his many minions. After he started creating this content and his point of view started getting spread around and more widely accepted, people who wanted to continue to spread his message started sprouting up like some kind of mythological hydra. The moment you would block one account that was spouting off this mess, another one would pop back up, especially when TikTok became popular. There are so many accounts like the one on the screen right now where men spend their time telling other men three main things. You are the very best thing that has ever happened to this earth. Women are not worth your time, and if you give them your time, they better be grateful. And finally, and what I feel is the most important focus of their entire movement, here's how you get the women that you want. Manipulating, tricking them, and making sure they know, well, they ain't shit compared to you. Why do I think that we are at the end of this era? I'm going to get to that. First of all, I'd like to explain.
All right. That's from Miss Stephanie Content. That's her real name, Stephanie Content. So that's what she left us with to feed on when we bring in Dr. Perry, where we talk about an article about, my brush with Black manosphere. How you doing, Dr. Perry?
I'm good, Ryan. How about you?
Man, I'm great. Dr. Perry's like the Jadakiss of the show. He's been here 3 times and never lost yet.
I appreciate the invite back.
Always, man. We always would like to see you, the good doctor, to come through. So here we go. What did you take from Miss Content's her spill, her 2.5-minute spill?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wish you could be here today so that we could get into some of the details and some of the nuances. I've been following this manosphere, and I've been following this movement from the sidelines for a little while now, and it's been really, really interesting. We were talking before we logged on, and so when it comes to this sort of thing, I always harken back to just the stuff that my grandmother told me. Grandma said, there's a way to say everything, and certainly we as men and we as people, we can think highly of ourselves, and we can know our worth, and we can know our value, and we can make sure that other people know that without coming across as being demeaning or putting people down. I don't know that anybody wins when we do that. The other thing that I'm interested in is with the guys who subscribe to this sort of philosophy. Who are the women that they're dating? Like if you're coming across in these types of ways, like who's interested in partnering with them? I would be fascinated to sit down and to hear from a couple where there's a man who subscribes to these philosophies, and then the woman or the women that they either date or are in long-term and sustainable relationships with, because that'll be a fascinating case study to see what's going on in the hearts and minds of these folks, just to get a better handle on what makes them tick and why it is they do what they do and how it is that they coexist with these types of philosophies and ideologies. I would be really, really interested in that.
Right, it definitely is. It definitely would be that way. Because within the manosphere article, it talks about, men talk about taking the red pill, matrix references that indicates that they have woken up to purport truth about women. And the black manosphere, men grumble about the very popular YouTuber like Kevin Samuels and his ilk, because Samuels allows black women, allows the black women he berates on his show to speak at all. And also in his lane, you have influencer Mr. Palmer, has coined the term baby mama terrorist, or BMT, and he has his followers support fuck child support hats. They sport these hats. Dr. Sean Thunder Wallace, a tenured professor at Ohio State University, is an influencer who works teeters at the edge of manosphere, beckoning in black men who might want to explore further. So you have these content guys. So basically, I guess shamming women, basically. Like who's really listening to them?
Who's listening to them? Number one, for the men, what's going on with them? What are their histories? What types of traumas are they dealing with that are gone unresolved, that they feel uplifted by this, and what is it? What need do they have that's being met by engaging in this type of uh, derogatory and demeaning talk and descriptions of black women? Again, as a person who, for a living, I should mention I'm a professor at the University of Louisville, where I teach in the School of Social Work. So we train social workers and marriage and family therapists. And it would be fascinating to be able to have a sit down with some of these guys to learn where it is that things went so far left for them that they've resorted to feeling like the only way to feel good about themselves is to push other people down. I'm fascinated by that, and I'm super fascinated, and interested to know who it is that they're dating. Like who, just like the lady in the article, she said like what would make somebody like that show up for the second date. Now I know in her case she wasn't interested in the second date, but my sense is there are people who are doing that, and what's really going on with them, right? From a self-worth, from a self-esteem value, from that sort of a perspective. Yeah, the other people I'm less familiar with. I'm familiar with Samuels because I see people sharing his information from time to time, but the other folks I'm less familiar with. So I need to do a little bit of background to get up to speed and more versed in what their sort of philosophies and ideologies are, and how closely connected they are to whatever it is we're seeing with Samuels. But again, I think endlessly fascinating. I have no idea how it is he convinces these women to go on the show. Like, and like unless he's backing up a Brinks truck to their front door and paying a bag for them to do it. Like I can't think of any reason for them to show up and subject themselves to whatever that foolishness is. Again, I think that there's ways to be honest and be truthful and be direct with people, and I'm a proponent of all of that, right? I think it to be the case that in any relationship, if you have an unstated expectation, that's nothing more than premeditated resentment, right? So in other words, people need to be straight up and be honest and be open with people about the folks that they're dating, about what it is that they expect, what it is that they need, what it is they want out of a relationship. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But again, there are ways to do that without being mean and nasty.
No, which is true. So like you said, the other guys in the article, we talk about Mr. Palmer, who's coined the term baby mama terrorist, or BMT, and his followers wear fuck child support hats. Like that's like, that's kind of like you're hurting the child at this point, right? Like we don't know why you're on this situation, whether it's for spite or your own well-doing or your own well-being. Like why would you do that? Like
Right.
have a
Yeah.
movement like that.
Right. And so just to make sure that your listeners are hit with a dose of reality, the Office of Child Support Enforcement, and I mean not to have a sort of a in the weeds discussion about child support, but anyway, the Office of Child Support Enforcement, one of their roles is to establish paternity. So in other words, a part of their job is to make sure that they identify the father of the child in question. And at the point in time when the DNA test comes back and says, no, you indeed are this child's father, it can't be fuck child support. That's your kid.
Right.
Right. And so you had all the control in the world over whether or not to have a sexual relationship with whoever that woman was. And if she wasn't someone that you saw as a potential mother of your child, it would have been a much more prudent approach to have taken the measure that you would have needed to take to avoid a pregnancy. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting that we're having this conversation. So my current project is a healthy relationship project where we enroll in 16 to 24-year-olds in healthy relationship workshops, sexual health workshops, and doing some career exploration with them. And the project is actually funded by the Office of Child Support Enforcement, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to put people in much better positions so they don't find themselves either out here talking about child support or calling people baby mama terrorists, because that's not helpful at all. Nothing good is going to come from that. I hate to use a buzzword, but that's toxic behavior, and behavior that's not at all helpful. And again, the point that you mentioned is the most important one. All of this, the only people who are being hurt by it is the children being produced out of these relationships. Somebody says it was all good when you were clapping cheeks. That's exactly right. Right. So if she was good enough to do whatever it was you were doing with, if you weren't being thoughtful and intentional enough to prevent the pregnancy, then those are decisions that folks have made. And as an adult, you get to make your decision, but you also have to live with the consequences. The health department is giving out free rubbers all over the place. You know what I mean? So these are things that we have to deal with if we don't want to. And again, in whatever challenges, whatever barriers, whatever obstacles brothers are facing, you aren't doing yourself any favors by making yourself feel better by pushing and demeaning and coming across as really just an ass. To be quite honest, I don't know if we can use that language. I guess we've been saying fuck child support. I guess we can say ass. Like, you don't have to be an asshole to people, right? If you got high standards, that's perfect. Do your thing, and nobody should be settling, right? But you cannot settle and again not be an ass. I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Which is true, but when you break it down, like you just said, these content creators, Kevin Samuel has 6 core principles for to be a high value man. Basically, like number one, a man's ability to earn at least 10K a month, earning 10K a month over the course of 5 years, acceptance from a group of other high value men, access to a fraternity-like network, an accepted prominent position by society, the ability to be of use by other high-value men. That is his 6 core principles to be a promising suitor as a high-value man.
Yeah. So I take no issue with that. I'm cool with that. The part where for me there's a departure is when you take your high value status, whether it's sort of self-proclaimed or bestowed upon you by other high value men or whatever the case may be, whatever the initiation process is. But anyway, once you get your high value union card, you don't have to beat other people in the head with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Again, that's what we're saying. So I would say the same thing. If we were having this conversation 10, 15 years ago, where there was this sort of movement where a lot of women were saying, hey, I'm independent and I don't need a man. Well, cool. That's right. That's fine. That's great. Right. You can go about your business and you can be perfectly happy without a man, right? So you don't have to sort of bow down to the patriarchal structure that suggests to you that you have to have a man. But it's also the case that if you don't want a relationship or if you don't need a relationship, that's fine. It's not necessary to lead with that, and it's not necessary to try to pound that into other people's head. It's fine. Black men and Black women have enough challenges, have enough problems wrestling with systemic racism, wrestling with historical and contemporary oppression. Um, we don't need to be at odds with each other, and we definitely don't need to be at odds with each other about who is more or less high value. Like this is I don't know what this is. I don't know where this comes from. This is really, really strange to me. And again, I would be really, really curious to know what need do these guys have that's being met by sort of circling the wagons around this high value man status. So so I'm gonna draw another analogy for you. The other day I was in a meeting, and somebody asked me. They said, "How do you want to be addressed?" Right? And they were asking whether or not what they were asking me was whether or not I wanted them to call me Dr. Perry. And I thought to myself, I so I graduated independent of whether or not anybody else acknowledges it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like my status isn't devalued just because somebody else doesn't recognize. So anyway, so how pompous and how arrogant and how audacious would I sound if I come on and I try to require people to address me in a certain way? I breathe the same oxygen as you. If you cut me, I bleed red just like you. I put my
Right.
pants on one leg at a time. So you can be high value or whatever the case is without being an ass. Again, we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Got you. So one of the things that he coined the term, where they use a sexual marketplace value and bases their attractiveness on height, weight, dress size, and physical features. If he believes a woman is below average or 8 or less than a 10 scale, he suggests they lower their expectations of attracting a high value man. Those he's seen as a particular unfit, he advises these women to settle for average men or worse, less than average to meet their personal and relationship needs. So what he said one time was, you should be grateful that a high value man will pick you over a woman who is 5'4", 120 pounds and a dress size 4. Now I don't know what size the lady was, but he says she was built like a running back.
Yeah, again, everybody should be free to have their own standards and expectations. And again, we all have our thoughts and ideas about what represents beauty. And again, you can have those standards without saying something like somebody's built like a running back. Again, like what, like why does that make you feel good to say that she's built like a running back? The other thing is, and it's actually, and I can share this with you. I actually have a journal article, and the title of it is "You Ain't No Denzel," and it speaks to some of these issues, right? Where like a lot of guys are out here talking about, again, they want somebody 5'4", 120 with whatever, and then they themselves don't represent what we would stereotypically think of as sort of the depiction of the portrayal of masculinity or beauty. And so there's some one-sidedness to that as well that I think is interesting. I think it's also the case, and again, I don't pretend to know these guys, so I don't know this. This is just wild speculation on my part. But my sense is, and my experience tells me that oftentimes, what's happening here, or the driving force or motivating factor behind these types of philosophies, is people who've been rejected and have been hurt in the past.
Mhm.
And so this is their way of sort of getting back or attempting to preserve their self-image by making sure that other people um, don't feel good about themselves. And in some ways, they feel elevated and boosted up by that. So I would be curious to know more about these folks' histories in terms of how that happens. There's a nice sized body of literature on people who are wrestling with some unresolved insecurities and traumas, and how they end up manifesting that into the lived experiences of not only themselves but projecting that on the other people.
Right. So would you say, like, these guys who, follow these content creators or create these contents that basically, endow to basically lower self-esteem or, come at black women, would you say they have internalized hatred?
So again, let me say two things. One, it would be tough to go that far without having had a discussion with them. Again, I'm talking about people that I don't know. So,
Right.
but that's not very far fetched. You know what I mean? Especially when I read in the article that we're talking about. At one point, the guy was saying, or the article was talking about how guys who again subscribe to this philosophy, they were talking about preserving the investment of their seed and saving their seed for white and Asian women because that was a better investment. And I was like, okay, that they wilding now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, and so and so this idea that now again, because people can have preferences, nothing wrong with that. I want to be very clear about that. And if for whatever reason, if dating a white woman or if dating an Asian woman, like if that's your preference, or if there's something about them from a physical standpoint that you find desirable over and beyond what you stereotypically see with black women, if that's your thing, okay, I guess. Um, but to blanketly say across the board that investing your seed in a white woman is again across the board a better decision than if the same behavior was engaged with a black woman. I think now we're getting into that realm where we are talking about self-hatred, right?
Right.
Because again, we're talking about people who, unless they're biracial, right? These are people who have black mothers, black fathers, black aunts, black siblings, and so what is it that you're saying about those folks in terms of whether or not they have worth and value? So that again, that's some strange and curious stuff. And again, this is speculation, so I'm trying to be careful here. But if I had an amount of money that I had to bet that really mattered to me, I would put it on. These are folks who've been, again, rejected and hurt in the past. So this is their way to preserve their self-image by making sure that no one turns the attention onto them and whatever their sort of traumatic histories are. So they sort of insulate themselves or buffer themselves in this cloak of, well, I'm a
Mhm.
high value man. A
Yeah,
lot
they
of
they
pretentiousness and I think
yes.
surrounding these discussions, I think.
Yeah, they do that, and also the article spoke about the toxic archetypes of black womanhood being the black matriarch, the Jezebel, or the Scraggle Daggle, and SYSBM parlays, and the welfare mother are all alive and well in the black manosphere.
And we've seen again from both a historical standpoint as well as obviously as you mentioned in the contemporary, one of the tried and true methods of the oppressor is to come up with these stereotypical depictions and archetypes or prototypes or profiles or whatever it is you want to call them. And what ends up happening is more and more what they do is they demean black women, blame black women, point the finger at black women as the sole or primary reason for the plight of black people. When again, if a group of people have a problem, most of black people's problems are due, at least here in America, black people's problems are largely due to systemic racism and
Mhm.
oppression, right? And well, what ends up happening is because we don't have a macro discourse in America, and
Mhm.
because we've been raised and socialized in a really, really individualistic country, what happens is we buy into this idea that people should pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And so, as a consequence of that, we never turn our attention to the external and environmental factors that shape our lived experiences. And so we end up, rather than turning to one another, I'm talking about black men and women, rather than turning to one another, we turn on one another. And again, this is sort of chapter one in the oppressor's playbook, right? If we can keep black men and black women at odds with each other, then we never turn our collective attention to the real culprit of our challenges, our strife, and our problems, our barriers and obstacles in this place, which is uh, systemic racism, white supremacy, and the insidious combination of patriarchy and capitalism, which has all suppressed all of us for the 400 years that we've been here since we landed on Jamestown.
Right.
And it's
Right.
unfortunate that we now see black people reinforcing and perpetuating it. It is it harkens back to Harriet Beecher Stowe's depiction of Sambo and Quimbo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you had sort of black middle managers who did the dirty work of the white overseer. Meanwhile, the overseer is able to keep his hands clean.
Right.
And again, that's why I say, I was quoting Jazz. Nobody wins when the family feuds. There's nothing good. Nothing good is gonna come from this.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's not, because when when we speak of these content creators, with the six core principles of averaging 10K a month, that's only 10% of African Americans. I might even be high on that. Of black men that average that you're telling women should seek this, or men, if you have this is what you should seek. I don't know. I mean, I know a few brothers, but I don't know that's legally making 10K a month. Like, it's 10 percentile. So what are you telling these, I guess, your followers? Like, you're giving them unrealistic expectations.
Unrealistic expectations for the mass majority of our society, and it's also perpetuating the insidious nature of both patriarchy and capitalism, because it's economic essentialism. We're reducing men to what they have in their back pocket,
Mhm.
and it's certainly the case. Now, again, don't get me wrong, right? Uh, we live in America, and we all need to be striving to make as much money as we can, because that's a part of sort of how it is that we survive. And if we're ever going to create real and meaningful change, it's going to take money in order to do it, because that's literally the currency that this place understands. But it's also the case that there are ways for us to have value and bring value and be assets to our families and our communities that don't have anything to do with how much we have in our bank account.
Right.
Because
Right.
again, so that's just perpetuating these troublesome and problematic tropes about uh, how it is that we see value, right? And that's as dangerous as me coming on here and talking about only valuing women for their physical appearance. You know what I mean? And so the- there are ways for us to see value in one another, and uplift and edify one another, that don't have to default to sort of white supremacist and patriarchal um, tropes around who and what is valued and how it's valued. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, again, if I can sort of go into a conspiracy theory, it also leads to questions about who, whom, or what is really behind this work, right?
Right.
Because if
Right.
we think about like who's benefiting from the ongoing feud between black men and black women, it's the winner is neither black men nor women.
No.
The fact that we never turn our collective attention to our real oppressor, that's the real winner. So it does lead to questions about who's funding this operation.
Yeah, you those content creators, they're just the face. Like you said, there's somebody behind it who's saying, like, I guess when you look at it philosophically, I guess like almost Illuminati, like, you're going to sell your soul for this and do this. We're going to make you a star, give you a lot of money, but you're going to oppress your people for us.
Right, and again, now I'm not going as far as the Illuminati, but
I'm saying that, but they always say there's a secret society behind something.
sure, right. But I mean, to your point, there is someone or some entity being served by having this agenda being pushed.
Right.
And my sense is the Samuels of the world, they really are the middle managers, the Sambos and Quimbos
Hmm.
in this establishment, and it becomes their job to keep us divided amongst one another rather than doing work to unify us.
Yeah. I
There's
mean,
a lot. There's a lot of
go
stuff happening in the chat here that I'm not able to keep up with. What we
I'm
got
trying
going
to
on?
catch up as well. Nobody asking questions. They just speaking. They just talking about, things we're saying. Nobody asked a question. But somebody did say, do you think their own mothers would condone this mess?
No. So right. So that's what I'm saying. So that's why I keep going back to, I would really be interested in learning more about these guys' social history,
Right.
right? Because they like those have to be really awkward moments with the people like the people in their real circles. Like I'm not talking about like in social media world, not the plastic and artificial stuff, but the people who really know these folks,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you take off the Gucci shades or the frames, or when you're just at home, you know what I mean? No mask on,
Right.
right? You're just your real authentic self. Like, who are the people who really know you and can get through to you? And what is it that you're saying to those people when they see you tear down your own people in that way?
I'm pretty
Right.
sure those, oh, I just have to do this. It's my job. I have to do this. Like, that's how they throw it. Like,
Yeah, no,
probably out there like that. I don't know these cats neither, but I'm saying that's what they probably mask it. It's just my
sure.
job. I'm just joking.
Yeah, yeah. All money ain't good money though.
Right,
And
no.
and watch this. Where I'm from, they got a name for people who do anything for money.
And what's their name?
Oh, it is. Yeah, well, yeah. We're talking about hoes and prostitutes, right?
Right, right,
You,
right.
you do anything for money. Uh, and so yeah, I think it's a sad commentary. I think it's a sad commentary on where we are as a society, especially in this time, right, when there's so much work happening to bring attention. And somebody said $40. $40 is $40. Yeah. Um, it's really sad. We live in this time where there's so much work being done to raise the awareness and the profile of our people. And for a moment in time there, we had a window where America was actually seemingly starting to pay attention to folks bringing attention to the light around the issues we were facing. And at the same time, we have people and I think one of the commenters talked about 15 steps back. These people are
Right.
dangerous, right? So again, so like we're having some fun with it, but I mean, these people, they really are dangerous. They really are dangerous because they do have a following, and they have people who really are leaning into these discussions, and they're walking away from these things, internalizing some of these messages. Dangerous for both men and women, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
and equally dangerous for the community because it's then when the if if the oppressor is not behind this and funding these operations, they're certainly going to pick it up and use it to their advantage whenever it is they're looking to advance whatever agendas that they have about keeping our communities marginalized and disenfranchised.
Right. But my thing is, I always look at it and say, like, who's really listening to your BS and taking this serious? Because somebody's lying. Because I've seen some of your baby mamas. I've seen some of them. So it's like somebody's lying. Everybody can't follow these content creators and keep it 100 because like you say, if you know these people who know you when the masks come off. We know
Right.
we've seen your baby mother, we've seen your child's father, we've probably seen your mother, we've probably seen your dad, we've seen your ex-girlfriend. So it's like, who is pushing your agenda to have people think that you are something which you aren't?
Yeah, where again we live in interesting times, and with the social media thing, I think we have a society of people who, many of them, not all of them obviously, but many of them, too many of them, they're actually more interested in what you think is happening than what's actually happening. So reality matters less than whether or not I can convince you of whatever perception or persona that it is I'm looking to sort of project. And so, again, I think that's troublesome and problematic too, that people are less interested in being tethered to reality and more about convincing you that I'm living some mythical, hypothetical lifestyle that may or may not even match my lived experience. That's a sad commentary as well.
Right, right. And just like the article, Manosphere, when the author asked Ali what's realistic by his standards of a black romance, he said it would look like, he replied, 80% of the guys get looked over while 20% of the guys get the ladies, who then screw the ladies over. And the black ladies complain that black men ain't shit. And yet the loss these black manosphere content creators feel at not holding a select or high value position in society is never channeled into anger as systems like racism, colorism, classism, fat phobia. Instead, their crosshairs are steadily fast trained on black women and feminism.
Yeah, yeah, that's a mouthful there, right? And again, I really wish, I don't know if you did this now. Did you reach out to any of these folks? Like even some of the people who were mentioned early on in the article. Have you had any of them on the show?
No, but we definitely gonna look into it. Have you come in if we see if we can get them.
Yeah, yeah. I would be really interested in hearing from them what their thought process is around number one, subscribing to these philosophies and ideologies. Two, have them walk us through a day in the life of someone who is looking to advance these agendas. And then three, for me, the most important question is, what need do they have that's being met by doing this? That's what I really want to know. Like I'd be really, really curious to have people respond to that question, right? What is it that's going on with you that is being satisfied by going about your business in this way? Because we know from a psychological standpoint, absent mental illness, right, human behavior is meaningful and is intentional,
Hmm.
right? So, in other words, we do what we do because there's a need being met. At the point in time when we don't have a need that's being met, that's when we change, right?
Right.
So, for them to be going about their business in this way, there has to be something that is again a need for them that's being met by them choosing to go about their business in this way. And I would be really, really curious to hear from them about what that is and why that need is one that has become so sort of salient in their identity, I think.
Right. Well, I have another clip from Stephanie that she left. For those who just joined us, we had another lady that was supposed to join us today, but she had other previous obligations. So she left us some clips for high value men. And here comes Stephanie again.
We have to end if for some reason it's not already understood. My first issue with these men is, of course, the misogyny. Even though the title high value men and any type of content that is mildly related to it, so being an alpha male, et cetera, I'm sure they have other ones out there, even though it seems on the surface like it is something that is to be used to lift men's spirits and raise their self-esteem so that they can go out and live better and more productive lives, what really happens once you dive into it is just this wave and this deep, deep, pestilent current of misogyny, specifically when you get into the type of content that is put forth and practiced by the Black community. There you have a ton of misogyny. And I think what happens here is you have a lot of men who are suffering from inferiority complexes caused by, just being in the skin that has been systematically oppressed the most in American history. You have men who are coming from a lot of broken homes and they've seen women be treated certain ways and respond to that treatment. And instead of becoming empathetic and wanting to reach out and help and dive back into their communities, what they've done is they've said, okay, well, I'm going to become the opposite of the figure that woman that raised me probably needed. And instead, I'm going to become a bit of a bully because I don't want to be around that. And I'd rather be around women that never had to deal with anything like that. And if she was hurt in those ways, well, there's probably something wrong with her anyway. She is of low value. And even worse, I think that what happens in these communities is that you have women who are desperate to be partnered. So Black women, because it is statistically proven that we are 62% less likely to be partnered than any other race of women in the United States of America. They say, well, okay, well, maybe we should listen to these men. What do they want after all? What do they need from us? And so what this content ends up doing is it ends up exploiting the very real vulnerability of women who are looking for partnership. The next thing I don't like is that they are obsessed with this idea of being the prize. A lot of these high value man accounts will ramble on and on and on about how women are not the prize, men are the prize, and women need to bring something to the table. So it's this mystical table. They talk about this table, this metaphorical table. It's like Disney World to them, this table. I'm not even sure they all even understand what it means, that they're all talking about the same table, but they won't let it go. Like I was
That
saying,
right there,
obsessed with this
when we
idea.
get to that, this mythical table right here that I've seen people on social media say, what do you bring to the table? Like, what table? Is this table that we're sitting at right now talking to each other? What table are you bringing?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I think that and again, there's a part of me that I I think that I understand a part of this, right? This idea that if you see yourself as a good catch,
Right.
right, then you want someone who is an equal catch, right? And so I think that's where this discussion around what is it that you bring to the table, that sort of thing, right? But I think what happens and where it goes sideways or where it goes left is when we get into this situation where we end up with people who are in a relationship, right? But the relationship is grounded on a foundation of competition as opposed to cooperation.
Right.
Because with the mythical table, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, well, let me bring my assets and dump them on the table, and then weigh them against the assets that you have, and see who among us has the most assets on the table, and we get to sort of claim superiority or dominance in the relationship. Well, that relationship is going to be doomed from the start because it's grounded in a philosophy and a foundation of competition as opposed to cooperation. That's not going to last long. Because either of those two parties are going to end up being dissatisfied because of the dominance and the inferiority that the relationship is built on.
I like sharing
That's a challenge and a problem in and of itself, I think. And I'm seeing people reacting to the idea of the table. So I think there's a part of me that understands it, but I think just like anything else, when taken too far, it becomes troublesome or problematic. And again, I think we should all be working in terms of self-development, in terms of personal development, in terms of professional development, to be the best versions of ourselves. But ideally, what we're doing in our relationships is we're partnering with people who complement us and help us to bring out the best in us, as opposed to seeing the other person as a foil or an enemy that we have to somehow overcome and dominate. That runs counter to the idea of a relationship.
Right. I mean, piggyback what you said about, if you my woman or she's your man or whatever, why are we in competition with each other? Let's put this together. We got a table, you get a chair, I get a chair, and we put whatever is in the middle and we go from there.
You're right. Yeah.
And I'm gotta be be in competition with you because your success is her success and her success is your success. That's how it's supposed to be.
Ideally, right. If your relationship is grounded on a foundation of cooperation and interdependence and is a symbiotic relationship, right? One in which everyone has opportunity to be able to thrive and gain from it. But again, it seems as though that's not where a lot of people are, right? It's also interesting too, because when we think about even the demographics around marriage, and we see the trend lines for African American or Black folks going down, we see that with all Americans, but we see a more precipitous decline with Black folks or African Americans. And I think what's happening is generationally, in days gone by, we talked about this in previous shows, but in days gone by, people saw marriage as the beginning of their lives together, and from that point, they would build. Right, so we have people who came together and they didn't have a table, right? But they would get married and they would build the mythical or theoretical table together. But now what we have from a generational standpoint is a situation, a scenario where people are much more likely to say, okay, well, I'll individually go and build my table, right? And then my partner has a responsibility and obligation to go and build her table. And at the point in time we have two completely finished and assembled tables, we'll then put those two things together. We'll meet at the altar. And life is such that it's really, really difficult to ever have a completely assembled table. Like, you're never really ready to get married. I've been married for 14 years. And even if you told me everything that I know now the day before I got married, I still wouldn't have been ready. There's still all kinds of work that has to happen. There's still all kinds of compromise that has to happen. Life is going to come at you. And if you aren't committed to the cooperation, if you aren't committed to the compromise, if you aren't committed to the partnership, life is such that it's just going to chew you up and spit you out. And if you're trying to do that, in the context of a relationship, but you're doing it as an individual, you've got zero chance. Because it's tough enough if you actually are cooperating, right? But what we have is scenarios where we have individuals masquerading as if they're in a collective partnership, but they're still operating as individuals. There is no coming together because they're constantly looking at the other side of the table to see how much are you bringing to the mythical or the proverbial table, and they're counting, right? Like one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me, and so on and so forth. So there is no cooperation. There is no mutual benefit. There is no symbiotic relationship. There is no partnership. It's two sort of independent contractors who simply just share the same space.
Right.
And that doesn't happen.
I don't want to get lonely.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Or somebody that's a sex partner. You know what I mean? Like you share space with them, and you all swap DNA from time to time. You know what I mean? But there's no real partnership. There's no real intimacy. There's no real connection, and that has all of the trappings of a failed relationship in the making.
Right. Now I know they probably get ready to get mad at this part of the show because here's a Kevin Samuels clip right here. He's coming in now.
I have a solid 9.8.
Did you hit it, bro? She says she's a solid 9.8.
Being pretty is not enough for a lot of men because I'm pretty and I'm still single. So,
What do you want?
I don't know. I really don't know what I want because these men, they don't know what they want. A lot of men don't know what they want in women.
You said you're how again?
33.
33. So regardless of what men want, you don't know what you want?
I mean, I know what I want.
And what is that? Guys, you know the first thing I said about ego? They're not willing to be honest.
To be honest with you, I ain't gonna lie. I don't know what I want in a man. Like, I've been screwed and fucked for so long, I don't know what I want in a man.
This is a little bit of time talking to you. It's been chaotic. I'm just asking you just the basic stuff about who you are and what you want. And the story where you told the story is, yeah, you can't make this shit up, people.
To let you know, I have completely lived my life and made it 360.
The 360 puts you right back where you were, but I understand what you're saying.
I made a 180. I found Lord and I got a man that's got money now.
You found the Lord?
Yeah.
Where'd you find him at? I didn't know he was lost.
I didn't know where the Lord was.
Okay. This is all inside of the last 4 months, right?
3 months, 4 months. Yeah.
So a lot of changing in 3 or 4 months. You said you got a man that has money now.
Yeah. I just wanted to let you know also, I wear my bonnet in public. I saw what you had to say about that. You know, I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, like
At the same time, you what?
Did you tell me to shut up?
No. I said, go ahead. You said at the same time?
At the same time, I just don't see what the issue of wearing a bonnet in public is.
Oh, right.
I got married.
Yeah, there was some clips from him right there, you know, how he's explaining things to women. Of how one lady thought she was a 9.8 and he said no. I'm like, well, you know, how can you make me feel, how can you tell me how I feel about myself? If I feel like I'm a 9.8 or a 9.9, it's not your opinion, you know?
Right. Except that they went on his show, I'm assuming voluntarily, to subject themselves to that foolishness, and they knew, like at this point, like he's not surprising anybody, right?
Right.
So the fact that folks keep going on the show and giving him oxygen, I think that is a problem too, right? I think for me, people like that need to be isolated and ignored rather than celebrated and uplifted and magnified. Yeah. So again, I would be curious to know, as curious as I am about the social histories of the men who subscribe to these philosophies, I'm equally interested and fascinated by the women who, number one, would go on the show to to be demeaned in that way. And I'm really interested in seeing and hearing from the women who date the men who subscribe to these philosophies, because I
Right.
have no idea what they're getting out of those relationships, um, because the men themselves appear to be really really narcissistic,
Mm-hmm.
um, um, really self-centered, um, really ethnocentric, right, and a whole bunch of other undesirable traits um, that don't really line up well as it relates to the traits and qualities of healthy relationships. Because again, because the relationship is not about a relationship, it's about their personal edification. And by definition, there wouldn't be much room for another person, right? Much less
Right.
one who sees themselves as someone who has dignity and worth.
Right. 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 I mean, but it's kind of like what we said before we started the show. It's just like you said, if you see his phone number pop up on you, and as I stated, like I'm not going no more for you to tell me that you might be pregnant by somebody else. You can
Right.
tell me shit in my house. Like we don't have to go on national TV to make a fool of ourselves, or I'm going on more to say, I've been dating your brother or your sister. Like we don't have to do. We can calm all this down in the house. We don't.
Absolutely.
We don't have to go on national TV to push their agenda for me to make a fool of myself on TV.
Right. Yeah. And it's as sad and unfortunate as it is. There is a cottage industry that has been created where people are profiting off of our pain. Um, but again, to your point, we don't have to participate. We need not participate. But for whatever reason, I think somebody said early on in the chat or the comments, just this idea that everybody has a price.
Mhm.
And it's unfortunate that for so many of us, um, the people are willing to do that to the detriment of the rest of the broader community. I think that's I find that really really unfortunate. Um, I would be concerned about the women who go on there about like what type of challenges and obstacles are they wrestling with to where they think it's okay for them to subject themselves to, again, see, just like you said, subject themselves to somebody else's uh, perspective and opinion of them, particularly around like physical appearance, because we already know um, where they're going. They're going to go with the sort of Eurocentric depiction of beauty, and anything that deviates from that is going to be seen as inferior because that's just the that's just the vibe that they're on. You know what I mean? So if you don't approximate whatever that is to them, then um, they aren't going to see any value anyway. But it is the case that there are other men out there who, for whatever reason, for right or for wrong, for better or for worse, would see value in them from a physical standpoint if that's the priority. But beyond that, recognizing that people's personal appearance is really more like a season, and for all of us, that's going to come and go. And if what you're really looking for is lifelong partnership, uh, again, that lifelong partnership needs to be grounded in something much more sustainable than person's physical appearance. So, but again, but that's if we're starting from a place where people are looking for a lifelong commitment, and that may or may not be the case in some of these situations. But again, I think that's useful information for people to know, right? Because if a person is preoccupied with the physical appearance, then that tells you everything you need to know about what their priorities are.
Right. Yeah. And I think before we get into I'll be damn, I think Sir Mix-a-Lot said it best when he quoted Cosmo says you're fat. I'm not down with that. When
Right.
when he went against the whole oppressor's theme of what you should look like to be pretty.
Yeah. Shout out to the Seattle Washington veteran, Sir Mix-a-Lot, who
Right.
who was who was troublesome and problematic in his own ways, but he was also a champion for the culture. So
Yes. He known that you're not going to. You don't. I don't want them small. I like
Yeah, yeah,
curves.
yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I like curbs. Before we get to IB Dam, this is coming from Charleston, South Carolina again. Roll it, brother, for real. You gonna roll it? Roll up. IB Dam. He must have walked away from the computer. Hit it. He must have walked away. Because we got, there you go. Good evening. It's now time for another episode of I'll Be Damned. So we're starting off today down in South Carolina. Actually, Charleston, to be exact. So I'm going out to dinner. Well, she says, Rod. So I'm going out to dinner with a guy that I've been talking to for a few weeks. The date started off kind of rocky because as we arrived to the restaurant, he walked right in front of me without even holding the door. Oh, hell no. Definitely not the gentleman that I expected. At that point, my blood began to boil because I do believe in chivalry. But I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, so I waited outside of the restaurant for him to realize that he needed to come correct that huge mistake. He came outside and asked me why didn't I come inside, and I informed him that it was because he did not hold the door open for me, and that if he'd like for me to enter, he would need to do so moving fast. He obliged. Long story more boring. We're at the restaurant finishing up dinner. Side note, this was not a fancy restaurant. It was a chain, but hey, food is food, and my date pays the bill. I asked our waiter for a doggy bag since I was going to finish the meal tomorrow. My date leans over to me and says, "Great. I can have that for my lunch tomorrow." What? With a look of concern and confusion, I asked him, what is he talking about? And he lets me know that he is indeed planning to take my leftovers with him to lunch the next day. I quickly informed him that there was no way in hell that he was taking my food with him because I was going to take it with me. Hello, it was my food. And he began to argue with me by saying, "Come on, you got that lamb though. I'm sorry, but is there something in the dating handbook that states that certain items of food are transferable to another date? Or to another dater?" So this dude doesn't hold the door open for me and then wants to turn around and take my food. I laugh. Get the fuck out of here. Nobody comes between me and my food. I don't care if you paid or not. Moral of the story, don't be stupid. If you invite a lady to dinner, number one, open the door for her. Chivalry is not dead. And number two, stay the hell off her plate. Get your own goddamn food. Besides, that lamb was good as shit the next day. I be damned. So the fact is, he took that young lady out, didn't open the door, and then try to take her leftovers.
That's wild. That's really wild. Who wants to eat somebody else's leftovers, right? Like that's weird and strange and cringe anyway, right?
Right.
No, she should have she should have left probably midway. Like he had shown her a couple of red flags, I think, from the very jump. That's what I was telling you, man. I've been married for 14 years, man, and I'm super excited about it, man, because it's a mess out here nowadays, man. It's crazy out there. It seems like it's the wild, wild west for real.
You wouldn't
And people
believe it, Dr. Perry. Yeah, it is like the wild, wild west. It's
yeah,
crazy.
like that is a whole mess. I
I
couldn't
mean,
imagine.
we have IB dams every week, and it's just. I think I got another one loaded up somewhere. Let me see if we can get another one before we get out of here. I think I got another one. I have to go all the way back to the No, I don't want to do that one. I think I got to go all the way back to the beginning. Because I think we just started this season 2. When you was on season 1, you didn't see these.
No, yeah, this is new for me. Yeah, this is new for me. So
Yeah.
these are people writing in with their experiences.
Yeah, they basically text me or email me, and I just write it out so I can read it. And here we go. Here's one more, and we can break this one down. Hit it for me, brother, for real. We're gonna do one more. Let the good doc break it down. What up? What up? What up, y'all? It's time for another episode of I Be Damned. I Be Damned. So, this story takes place in Brooklyn, New York this week, and it goes like this. I was swiping through Plenty of Fish, POF, and came across this dude. Let us call him AB, aka Ass Blower. It will make more sense towards the end of the story. AB asked me if I'm down for the get down. Am I down for the get down? And I said, of course I am. But since I do not want to end up disposed in a back alley or on TV One, Fatal Attraction, or snapped on oxygen, I asked him if we could meet up for a drink first. So we met at this bar in Brooklyn, and AB looked great. He checked all. This dude did not look too crazy boxes. So we headed back to his apartment, remind you, in Brooklyn, to get down with the get down. We got to his apartment, and he whipped out a bottle of wine and said, we are going to get drunk and do wild shit that we never done before. I'm secretly thinking, okay, bro, just because you did anal once in your lifetime does not make you kinky, bro. Little did I know I was in for some wild shit that night. First, Ass Blower whips out a plethora of toys. Oh shit, I lost the part in the story. He whips out a plethora of toys, including a double-sided dildo, vibrator, and an air pump. Yo, a fucking air pump. Let's jump ahead about an hour. Now, after some anal prep and fucking on his balcony, he whips out this air pump. It turns out this dude fetish is blowing air into asses and listening to it come out. He wanted to hear me blow a big ass fart. Anyways, Ass Blower proceeded to pump air into my ass, and I legitimately thought I was going to blow away. There was so much air in me, I was farting, queefing, and burping something fierce what felt like days after. He continued to text me, but I could not get over the fact that he pulled out a Wilson's fucking air pump. He thought my ass was a Spalding basketball. I blocked him and closed my Plenty of Fish account. I be damned. Ass Blower. Yeah.
So wait though. But the person participated though.
Right.
Right. So she said, was it a man or a woman?
It was a man with the air pump. It was a woman.
Right.
It was a woman.
Okay. So I'm tripping off the fact that she said an hour later. It was like, well, hold up, you ain't just leaving? Like, what's the deal? Like you listen, man, this is crazy. And again, like so who wants to get close to somebody's ass? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, that's, man, listen, man, the cats are crazy out here, man. Was this a first date? Because you said she met him at the bar. She didn't even ride with him, right?
She met him on Plenty of Fish. POF.
Plenty of Fish. What is that? What is that? That's like an app or something?
That's a dating app. Yeah, it's a dating app. She met him
But
on there, and they went
but
out.
but it sounds like they didn't have like a real relationship though, other than having met initially on the app though. Like this is not somebody she had known for any extended period of time. It didn't seem, because she seemed surprised that he pulled out the air pump.
Right.
And again, I mean, now I may be thinking about this too much, but like, so like I know my way around an air pump from, like you said, inflating basketballs and bike tires. Like that joint comes with a needle, right? Like it's a whole needle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, needle.
what's the deal? Like you took the needle in the ass? Like, wow, like that's crazy. That's dangerous as hell. You know what I mean?
Oh man. Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
That's a lot of trust. That's a lot of trust. You know what I mean? Like you just gonna bend over and let somebody stick a needle in your ass, and you don't even know them. Oh, and this is after downing a bottle of wine, by the way, right? So
yeah, right.
You remember the game Operation? Do you remember that joint?
Yes, I remember Operation. You hit the sides and it go off if you couldn't get the stuff in there.
Yeah, so this dude got a needle to your ass after a bottle of wine. Like you gonna end up on a Mattel game somewhere. You gonna end up on a gurney. Like what? I'm going upstairs and I'm hugging my wife, man. Like y'all can have this. Ain't nothing out here for me.
Hold on. I got one more for you. They said I got 5 minutes. I got one more for you.
You got something to top that?
I have to really look through them to tell you what can top it. Roll it. I got a bunch of them. Good evening. Welcome to I'll Be Damned. But this week we kind of switched it up, and not. Hold on, we got to remove that one because that one was about domestic violence. Somebody wrote in. We had a domestic violence show and she talked about domestic violence on that one. I remember that one, clear as day. That was domestic violence. I think this is good right here, brother. For real, roll it. Welcome back to another episode of I Be Damned. I Be Damned. So today we got this young lady calling all the way, coming from the West Coast, Los Angeles to be exact. So she stated, I met a man on OkCupid. Dating app, okay. She said he was 36 years old, a 92% match, ESTP. And what that means in the dating app world is extroverted, observant, thinking, and prospecting, their personality traits. So anyway, he was ESTP, drama-free, looking to find someone intelligent, down to earth, and can keep up with his depraved sense of humor. He went on to say that he was at a tech startup company, and on the weekends, he was on the quest to find new and fun activities. He had a gorgeous dog, and he didn't eat kale. Oh, and he was really good at treating you like a princess. We instantly connected, texted insanely, and became Snapchat friends. We had plans for Monday, and it couldn't come soon enough. But since I always Googled my dates first, I did a quick search, and I found him. And this is what she said. He was a wig-wearing bank robber finally caught. There was all his glory. This uber cute guy had a date with me in 2 days. Had alleged robbed a bank less than a year ago. I then found his wedding website declaring he was supposed to be married in October of 2015, but he was arrested the day before. He went to jail until February of 2016, and his return to social media showed he was happy to be back with his dog. When I asked for more details, he admitted that his fiancée left him, and he had come clean about robbing the bank. And he was just trying to live a normal life before his trial. When I Snapchatted his own headline to him with WTF on it, his first question was, how did you find my last name?
I told him he didn't need to worry about that. His second question to me was, so I guess our date is off. And she said, yes, the fuck it is off. I be damn. See you next week, man. Bank robbers and all type of shit this week. I'll see y'all next week. I be damn, man. Thank you.
Bank robbers.
Yeah. Oh, somebody said, girl, create an account. Hey, beautiful, do you have any pics of your feet? Please, I close my account immediately. Oh, this must be a POF story. But yeah, that's what happened. He was going out with a date on her, with her, and he robbed the bank 2 days before.
Yeah, so rare is the occasion where I'm speechless. But so I'm thinking back to like the craziest thing that ever happened to me from a dating standpoint. I remember meeting it, and this was like 1998. You know what I mean? Like I was a sophomore in college. I remember meeting this girl. This was back when like cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone. I had a beeper. I had a pager. You know what I mean?
And this was the end of the era. Pages and cell phones. Cell phones was on their way.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I remember I pulled up at the light and I looked to my right, and there was a girl driving a car, and she was cute, and it was her and her friend, and you know you can feel people looking at you, and so I looked over, so she was flagging me down, and so like a fool, like I pulled over, complete stranger. This is where the story started going left anyway. So I pulled over, and we talked in the service merchandise parking lot. Service merchandise was like an electronics and jewelry store, like a sort of chain department store type situation. We talked in service merchandise parking lot. So I gave her my beeper number and I told her, I said, holler at me sometime. Right, I'll be damned. Like 10 minutes later. I mean, I never forget this. It was December 22, 1998, because I was going to the mall to get my mama a Christmas present 3 days before Christmas. I said, give me a call. I said, holler at me sometimes, what I told her. Not even 5 minutes later, my beeper started going off with a number that I didn't recognize. And like a fool, second mistake, I dialed the number back. It was her. And I was like, oh shit, like this. And I remember thinking to myself, I said, this shit crazy. Like I said, call me sometime. Like I ain't mean like 10 minutes from now. You know what I mean?
Right.
So she was like, hey, like you want to go to the movies? And I was like a fool. I said, yeah. So she's like, so I said, what do you want to see? She was like, I don't know. What's the Psycho with Norman Bates? That joint they had just did a reboot of that. Okay, you know what I mean? So she was like, let's go see the Psycho joint. That should have been the third red flag. But again, like I don't know what I was tripping. But I was like, okay, yeah, why not? So anyway, so long story, a little bit shorter. So we go see Psycho. I had just got off work when I first were going to the mall. So I was tired. I had to get up and go to work because I worked like 5 in the morning at 2 o'clock. I worked in the produce department of a grocery store. So I had to be there like early to set the ice up and all that old kind of stuff or whatever. So anyway, I ended up falling asleep in the movie. So I wake up and the chick is like looking dead at me. I'm like, oh shit, like you know what I mean? Like it startled me when I saw like she was breathing. That's probably what woke me up. Like her breath was just like leaning on me. So man, the movie is over. I'm so glad to just be able to go home. Like man, let me get out of here. Like this was stupid. I'll never do this again. So okay, so she had told me to meet her back in the service merchandise parking lot. And what she was saying, she was framing it like a safety sort of a thing. Just like you were saying, the lady was saying that, rather I'll meet you at the bar. So she was saying she'll drive so that way she'll know. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. So I'm saying that to say I had to drive back to the service merchandise parking lot in her car so I can get to my car. Well, we get out to the car and she was like, oh, damn, I think I locked my keys in the car. I'm like, man, God. Come on. So she had to call her cousin. Her cousin comes to pick her up so she can go back to her house to get her spare keys. Right. We go back to her house to get the spare keys. Man, her whole family is in that joint. And she introducing me. Yeah, she introduced me to her mama, her aunties. I'm like, what the hell? Like, this is crazy. So, and they like, oh, this is who you was telling us about. I'm like, whoa. And so she giving me the elbow joint, like, just like roll with it, just like play along, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so like I ain't want to blow up a spot and like that, so I played along with it or whatever. So then we got back and come like, hey, cool, this is finally over with. So we headed back to the Surf Merchandise parking lot so I can get in my car and I can go home and I can just like throw my whole beeper away. You know what I mean? So then her and her cousin got to arguing. You know what I mean? And so then the cousin said something to her and like she just snapped. And she was like, you ain't gonna just show me up in front of my new boyfriend because like I really like him and we got a good thing going. I'm like, oh shit, like we literally just met like not even 3 hours ago. So I was like, whoa. So I was like, whoa, like what do you mean like your boyfriend? So then she started snapping on me. She was on some like, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting funny? Well, like, no, I'm just trying to figure out like what the deal is or whatever. So anyway, so she's snapping at me, snapping at her cousin, not paying attention to what she's doing. Boom, slams right into the back of a Chevrolet Blazer.
Oh shit.
I know. So I said, damn. So she get mad at me on some like, what do you mean, damn? I said, what do you mean? What do I mean, damn? You done ran to the back of these folks' car, so on and so forth. She was like, well, fuck it. So she pushed the car in reverse, put it back in drive, dips around, leave the scene. The dude is outside. Like, what is the deal? Like, you just towed the back of my truck. So I'm like, man, we are here to commit a whole fucking felony. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, finally get back to the car. Like I ain't even wait for the car to stop. Like we may be doing like 6-7 miles an hour. I just jumped out that joint. You know what I mean? Like got in my car, went home. Like I'm thankful to have made it through. I promise you. I tell you, no lie. If I'm lying, I'm flying. The next day, I'm getting in my car, coming home from work. I pull in. She in my driveway talking to my sister.
What? What?
How do you even know where I live?
Wow.
Crazy. I'm like, man.
You find out how she figured where you lived at?
No. So if I'm ashamed to say this, but this is the God's honest truth. You know what I did, Rod?
What you did?
So again, I was a sophomore in college. There was a dude in my orientation class, and he was kind of a lame and kind of a square. I put him on.
See, this is what happens. See, this is you can't trust people that went to Alabama State, man.
So listen, if Lloyd from Birmingham, if you out there, my bad, man. I set up with the dude from my orientation class. I was like, listen, what's the first law of nature? Self-preservation. You know what I mean? Right. So I was like, nah. So I arranged for her and Lloyd to go out. You know what I mean? So I don't know what happened after that. All I know is she went in my driveway anymore. So
is Lloyd still living?
I don't know if Lloyd is out there, because if this HBCU singles, you know what I mean. If Lloyd is out there, if anybody that knows Lloyd, my apologies, man, my bad. That's a whole confession right there. I don't think I ever told anybody that story my whole life. So now I'm on I'll be damned.
Felonious first date somebody put on
there. Yeah, absolutely.
We gotta find Lloyd to see if Lloyd is still living. Lloyd might have married her.
Either he married her or she chopped him up and put him in a basement somewhere. I know one of the two. Better him than me though.
I feel you. You know, that's Newton's law, survival of the fittest. So she was just from Birmingham. I mean, she was just from the neighborhood. I mean, from your city. She didn't go to ASU.
No, see, I'm from Montgomery, right there, because I'm from like right there where State is. You know what I mean? Lloyd was just a dude in the class who was he just sat behind me. Like I ain't even really know him. He just was a dude who sat behind me.
You didn't even know.
Nah. I was so that's the reason why I didn't feel bad. But I was like, I was like, Lord, like I got somebody for you, man. Like I could tell he didn't get much action on the yard. You know what I mean? So it was Somebody said it could have worked.
You know Lloyd's last name.
I don't. That's what I'm saying. I didn't even know him well enough to know his last name. Well, all I know his last name was Birmingham. I just knew he was Lloyd from Birmingham. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Lloyd from Birmingham that went to ASU. If you're watching, please email us. We
Yeah.
didn't even know if you're still living.
Right. Yeah. Or if you see him, blink twice. If you, yeah.
Oh man, so we get ready to get out of here. What work you got coming up? So if anybody wanted to check your work out, you can drop Dr. Perry's information in the actual chat, brother, for real. But what you got? What you working on now, Dr. Perry?
Yeah, so it's interesting we're having this discussion. Again, my research mostly revolves around fathers, families, and relationships. And so our new project, as a matter of fact, it really just started. We're getting ready to launch. We got a healthy relationship project for 16 to 24-year-olds. And so
Okay.
all of the stuff that we were talking about today, we're having discussion and conversations with young folks so they can equip themselves with the knowledge, the skills, the information to be able to have healthy communicative relationships that are mutually beneficial, grounded in the spirit of cooperation as opposed to competition, so that hopefully we can impart upon this next generation the skills and tools that they need so they not end up on the back end of a Kevin Samuels, Manosphere, whatever that foolishness is. So yeah, so that's what we're working on now. The project is called Empower You. And so if you do if you follow us if you follow me on either Instagram or Facebook or whatever the case, you can keep track of what it is that we got going on. Empower You at the University of Louisville is what the project is called. 16 to 24-year-olds, healthy relationships, sexual health, and career exploration.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming again for the third time. I'm pretty sure you'll be back for a fourth.
Yeah. Just let me know when. I'm glad to do it, and I'll have to. And again, we with the new project, I'll be on the lookout for some new I'll be damn content. And if y'all see Lord before I do, man, like on the real, like I'm a better and more evolved person than I was back then. So send Lord my sincerest apologies, man. My bad on that, Lord.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, we always got I'll be damn every week. So next week we'll be back 9 o'clock, and I have Jessica, I forgot her last name, and she'll be coming to talk to us about dating with HIV. She's a HIV person, and she is one of those. She's a ambassador of it. She wants to come talk about it next week. People dating with HIV next week at 9 o'clock. Yeah. So other than that, thank you again, Dr. Perry, for coming. For all out there in TV land, make sure you hit up Pressure Toys to get that throat master 1000. She emailed me earlier about that. We had it's a long story, Doctor.
I was trying to keep my face straight.
Yeah, we had a toy seller on here a couple weeks, and she showed up 2 weeks ago with the throat goat 1000.
Is that like the Atari 2600 or something? Like, what is like? Maybe I don't want to know. Never mind. I'm good.
We'll see you next week with Jessica talking about dating with HIV. Thank you again for coming. See y'all next week.
Take care, y'all. I appreciate you, Rod.